Hello, another roundup, another video talking about Lorcana. I do other things as well, but I do talk a lot about Lorcana. Don't be worried, there's a amber steel list on the screen. I will talk about blue steel. We'll round it out and where I'm at with the list. But Decandio just won an event using this list. Amazing player, like probably I assume the best steel song player there is out there right now. Yeah, and he managed to win with this. And the interesting thing is no daisies, which is a card that's worrying people a lot. And I will mention with these big 10k events or these big events where we get a lot of data and they can go onto ink decks and people can net deck it and stuff. These things do shape the meta because players now we don't have the ability to have a virtual leaderboard as we did with a previous client, where we could just see who's winning at that time and go, this deck's really good because consistently they're playing a lot of games with this deck and it's climbing them up on the ladder. And if you're topping with a deck and whatever reason why, you could just say, hey, what's your list? And you'd probably play that and it's good. So we have to wait for these big events to come out and then we can go, that list looks good, I'll play that. So I think a lot of people will follow this list and will try it out. There's probably benefits to a lot. I assume the Devine in the mirror is pretty good. You're not investing in just cheap questing. And in the mirror, if you're the one who's going to be investing in like going Daisy and Lawrence and stuff like that, and your opponent is just going to be removing it, you just get wrecked. And Steel Song's taking up so much of the meta right now, so it just feels like, yeah, this is good. You can do a really cool line with a lantern, so you can lantern on 2, turn 3, shift, use the lantern, play a Cinderella and a Pete, then shift the Cindy the following turn because the lantern lets you deduct one cost from all your characters played. So that's really cool as well. So yeah, I think this will definitely shape it. And it was interesting to see at the 10k there was a blue steel player who managed to get into the top 8 and tracked his gameplay. Awesome player, amazing player. Goes by the name Lamb Chop, I believe, on online. And if you, I think it's Jonathan, I believe. Sorry if I got the name wrong. But if you see their gameplay videos on Blue Steel player or like from a regionals like VODs and stuff like that, it's really worth watching because their mulligan, how they play is just it's really really good. So yeah, it's worth checking out if you can see him. But yeah, as I say, it did a really good run, and I think that's given a lot of hope that Blue Steel still has a space. Looking at the percentage meta of that event as well, I mean, we knew Amber Steel and Ruby Sapphire were going to be quite top contenders. I mean, they were taking, I think, Amber Steel was taking a good majority of the meta of the room, and then Ruby Sapphire was very soon afterwards. And Ruby Amethyst as well, of course, taking a very large chunk. I don't believe it was too shy of what the Ruby Sapphire was, which is good for us. And then Sapphire Steel was next following it, and we were above the rest. I think there's a lot of like 9 people playing, certain lists like green, purple, and stuff like that. I don't know why I used all the colors, and on that one I just used the shorter versions like green, purple, but I just did. Yeah, what was it, Emerald, Amethyst, lists like that, or Purple Steel, or yeah, Amethyst Steel, those sort of lists. We were still a little bit higher than them, so there are still a lot of people with a belief in Blue Steel, and to be honest with you, after today's playing, I have as well, so I'll just jump into that, and I'll show you the list that I was running in the end. So this is what we brought today, and we did a bit of pile testing as well, so we went over 60, played some cards that we thought were good, and we wanted to test them out, so we tried out what's it called? Like Visions of the Future, I think it's called, and that's really, really good. Visions is good. Look at the top 5, pick one. So if you wheel into basically nonsense, which happens sometimes, you just get grabs, quills, and some other just used stuff you don't need for that matchup. You could wheel into a Visions, and you could find your next wheel, or you could find your whatever. Or maybe there are some good cards where there is no other wheel or no draw mechanic with the Hiram, so you could just keep linking. That was really good when it worked. It just felt like the deck's list's always been so tight that I couldn't really find room for it to begin with. But it was all good information. And yeah, today, I mean, like I said, people have been very skeptical on Blue Steel. People always are skeptical of Blue Steel at the start of a set. That's just how it always be. But then it ends up, winning Mickeys and stuff like that. So it is a sort of strong deck. But yeah, we did try Ruby Amethyst, and just personally, like wasn't following the deck too much. I felt the mirror is very long, it's very grindy. I don't really have the time or effort to learn it, and same with Ruby Sapphire. It's very very good, very strong, but after a few games or so, it's just not doing it for me, and I'm not enjoying it. And there's something to be said about enjoying the deck. If you're going to do 9 rounds of it and then try and make a top cut, you want to be engaged in what the deck you're playing and enjoy it to some extent. Otherwise, what's the point? It's just not. You still do this stuff for fun, as competitive as you can be. You still have to play games for fun. So yeah, went back to Blue Steel and we tried this list out. This is very similar to what the player who made cut at the 10K was playing, and it's very similar to what Sky uses as well. And we're utilizing a few things, so I can walk through the list. I mean, you can things to note straight away. The Fortispheres have been cut down to two. And this is mainly because we don't have Tamatoa in the deck, so recycling them and stuff like that, we didn't need it. So we needed room, so we went for the Fortispheres, and that's where the room comes in to fit in some other fun and exciting things. Two Kronk just allows you to have more Tinkerbells in your deck and more Tinkerbells that are going to stick as well. So Kronk's just been really, really useful in my opinion. I really like the card. If you get it with a Cogsworth as well, that's 2 resist. So yeah, just been quite overperforming there, and I really like the card. The Pete's are great. This is a Mickey build, but to be honest with you, I've got some views on that, and I think maybe the way that Tippo and Mickey are going to be looked at is the exact way that the One Jump Ahead and Mickey was looked at in previous sets, where both had their positives and negatives. Both had valid reasons to do it, and at this point, I don't want to spend too much time debating on which one. They both put a card in your inkwell, so I generally think if I see someone's list and they're opting to play Tippo or Mickey, I'm not going to judge. And to be honest with you, I'm still jumping in back between both of them. But yeah, this list is we're way focused more on having early game pressure. You still win against RP. I mean, Aerial on a Pete is just sometimes game winning. You can lock in like 10 lore with a dime setup. You've still got dime targets. Bell's still really useful. She's useful into a lot of things, even to aggro. You could just play her and then say we're slowly going to get lore once we get to that 10 ink. But yeah, that bit at the start is the Captain Hook 2 Argus and Smee as well. That's an interesting thing because now we've got 6 2-drops and 4 1-drops, which is a big change from what we've seen in previous sets where we could sort of shy away and even sometimes just win with 4 Smees and 2 Argus or just 4 Smees even. But yeah, we just need to be applying early pressure as soon as we can versus a lot of these decks now. So yeah, definitely had to put some in there. And this isn't what Sky was using the 2 Argus, but the gentleman who was playing at the top cut was using it, and it was mainly something I really wanted to test out. And yeah, it was great to know that I was never going to miss early pressure. And having Argus back in the list meant the RP matchup wasn't, horrendous again, because they're still going to try and cheese you with a Flynn, and that sort of just sucks, doesn't it, really? So yeah, that little bit at the start's great. I think I need to run some games though with Argus out and some other parts in just to kind of wean it out a bit. Because as I say, we went into Steel Song. I felt fine after a few games after understanding what I can do in my positives and negatives. Anything else, Green Steel, Blurple, Ruby, Amethyst, just all those decks, it felt fine because we're just this really strong mid-range deck that can battle them out. We've still got Hiram Draw, we can burst with a wheel, a Kronk and a Tinkerbell. You just keep the board in check. So yeah, decks that have to require board control to win just weren't winning. And then Ruby Amethyst, you can go over them with a dime. Of course, Ruby Sapphire has become a very tough matchup. I think to use this list and to try and achieve a 1-1, because we're talking in best of two terms, I think it takes an incredible amount of luck with this list. I think it needs to be teched a little bit more towards that, because as much as I've been trying to beat Steel Song because I just dislike their deck, and that was a hateful comment. As much as I enjoy that matchup against Steel Song, I was really trying to tech to make sure that we could fit in a meta where Steel Song was very dominant, and I do think Blue Steel can. It has a lot of strengths to it, so yeah, I'm really sticking with this stuff. We went on to one Cusco. I think that can go up. The Cusco card is very, very useful. I'm looking at the maths of going over 60 as well to see if that's worth it. The percent of how much we'd lose at missing ramp on 3, all of that stuff, and you can add in the maths as well from the pop scores and Fortispheres to try and draw you, and then the maths as well from the turn 1, turn 2, and turn 3 draw. All that stuff might add up, and you might end up actually having a fairly decent chance of missing around like a 1% difference or something like that. So yeah, all that stuff. But as I say, I think you'd want to consistently 1-1 Ruby Sapphire. You'd want a situation where right now the way I feel the deck is Ruby Amethyst. I feel fine. I think I can 2-0 that. All the other sort of decks that go in there. So as again I state, Blurple, Purple, Amethyst Steel, Emerald, Amethyst. All these other decks that you sort of come across, I think we can 2-0 them. Steel Song, I think, yes, it is tougher than the other matchups, but you can still 2-0 it. I think this deck, the way it's built, it built towards 2-0ing that deck. But Ruby Sapphire, I think you want to be in a position where you can consistently at least 1-1 and then push for a 2-0 if they have a bad hand or whatever. And I know that sounds a weird way to do it with competitive gaming, but no deck in the format will have just consistent 2-0s across the board, because if they did, everyone would just play it. Like, let's be honest, let's be real. Ruby Sapphire is very unlikely and doesn't enjoy a matchup against a good Ruby Amethyst player. We've never enjoyed it going into Ruby Sapphire with Blue Steel. There's loads of decks that they just have their matchup where they're like, I hope I avoid that one. And usually that's on meta's form. The popular decks rise and the decks that are countered by it tend to fall under. But as Steel Song can react, it's not Steel Song, Sapphire still can react to the meta. I feel we can still have a good chance. So yeah, just trying to push that Ruby Sapphire matchup into a 1-1 consistently, and then a 2-0, with good draws and stuff like that, which should give you a good turnout at a regional. You can still be unlucky and just do like 5 matches against Ruby Sapphire, but with Ruby Amethyst taking such a dominant stance in the meta still, and I still think it will at regionals. I think a lot of people just feel comfortable with that list, especially as I live in the UK and I know Ruby Amethyst is just very popular. And the next regional I attend will be Birmingham. It's just a very popular deck that people like because they've just played it since like set 2 or whatever. And then Steel Song, yeah, I think you can push that to a 2-0 as well. It'll be your harder matchup, but I think it's one that you can push to a 2-0. You're just going to have to draw pretty good, and you're just going to have to mulligan probably, and just going to really lock in for that matchup. And then, yeah, push that Ruby Sapphire to that 1-1. But yeah, overall it was quite nice because, of course, this weekend and like the last week, it's been waiting for the 10k results to see how well Blue Steel could do. There was a good turnout. There was someone who made top 8. It was very good. The data seemed quite good to stick with the deck, in my opinion. You've always needed a decent, good run with Sapphire Steel at regionals. Sadly, I didn't have the best one because it was such a popular deck, and I just got I got a few mirrors, and I'm not going to dispute that. I just didn't like the mirror very much. So yeah, just overall, I'm still quite confident on the deck, and it looks like what I'm going to bring to regionals, which was great because there was a while when I just wasn't very confident on it, and I was looking at Ruby Sapphire, and then sort of actually putting that into practical use of, do I want to play this deck very much? No. So yeah, I'll keep updating the list. I think we're just going to test swap Mickey for Tippo and see how much that changes the deck for starters. Try and add some more top end stuff. It looks like we're in a situation where I don't think Aerial is going to improve your matchup into Sapphire Steel, especially when you're cutting Force Spheres down to 2. So you only got 6 cycle cards compared to they'll blue, Porp, Ice Blocks, Quills, Dime. They'll match it or they'll go more. So she won't even be questing for 5. So I think what you might be wanting to do is increase your amount of bells, maybe increase the amount of Peats. Um, you know, just so you can protect board, get things to quest a little bit more, and just dime tap things. And you've also got to remember now Ruby Sapphire is very good and very consistent because they have 2 Cuscos. Once they're the matchup, they'll hug one in hand to take out your dime. So when you play dime, you're going to want to be able to tap it the turn you play it. And then they'll, Cusco your dime, and then hopefully you can just wheel and find another dime, or you can find more answers, some aerials and peats, and just close that game out for you. But yeah, overall, it felt consistent. It felt like a really good place to stand from and just keep moving forward with it. I think a lot of their lists are quite refined, so what we see right now is what we get. If Steel Song wants to take Daisy out of the list, I'm going to be happy with that. So, yeah, I think we're in a decent spot, and I'm quite excited now to keep testing and just keep improving the list.